You never listen to me anymore. My name's Ethan Rhodes. I'm 46 years old and I manage money for a living. Been doing it for 22 years in Atlanta, helping people plan their futures, protect their assets, make smart choices. That morning, sitting at the breakfast table with my coffee getting cold, I listened to my wife Sabrina complain about our vacation plans while she scrolled through her phone. She wanted Miami. I'd suggested the mountains. I said, "Miami, Ethan. Are you even hearing me?" I was hearing her. Problem was, I'd been hearing the same tone for months. Sharp, impatient, like I was some inconvenience she had to deal with before getting to the important parts of her day, which apparently involved a lot of time at that new gym downtown. "Miami's expensive right now," I said, not looking up from my tablet where I was reviewing client portfolios. "Peak season. We could save $3,000 going somewhere else." She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so cheap, we can afford it." We could afford it, that was true. 22 years of disciplined saving, smart investments, and living below our means had built us a solid foundation. House paid off, retirement accounts healthy, joint savings sitting pretty at $47,000. But something had been bothering me for weeks. Little things. Sabrina asking about account numbers, mentioning how her friend Jessica got half of everything in her divorce, comments about prenups being controlling and unfair. Nothing big enough to confront, just enough to make me pay attention. That afternoon I did something I'd never done before. I pulled our joint account statements and credit card bills. What I found made my stomach tighten. $800 at that gym last month. Not membership fees, personal training sessions, individual sessions that cost more per hour than most people make in a day. Then I saw the restaurant charges, expensive places downtown, lunch meetings that went long, very long. I sat in my home office until well past dinner, reviewing everything twice. Sabrina called from upstairs, saying she was going to bed early, had an early session with her trainer tomorrow. Luis, that was his name. She'd mentioned him before. Young guy, professional bodybuilder, helped her with her fitness goals. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Sabrina was already asleep, turned away from me, her phone charging on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a text notification. I didn't look, didn't need to. Sometimes the numbers tell you everything you need to know. Sabrina and I met 15 years ago at a corporate Christmas party. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company. Smart, ambitious, beautiful. I was the boring financial guy who somehow caught her attention. We got married 2 years later. For a long time it worked. She handled the social side of our life. I handled the money. She trusted me to make the right decisions and I trusted her to be honest about what she wanted. We bought the house in Brookhaven, took nice vacations, supported each other's careers. But things started changing about a year ago. Sabrina got restless, started talking about feeling unfulfilled and stuck in a routine. She joined that expensive gym, started buying new workout clothes, talking about transforming herself. I supported it, even encouraged it. People need hobbies, need goals. I was working 60-hour weeks anyway, managing portfolios for clients who panicked every time the market hiccuped. If the gym made her happy, great. Then she started coming home later. Gym sessions that used to be an hour turned into 3. She'd shower there instead of at home. Started talking about Luis constantly, how motivating he was, how he understood her goals, how different he was from other trainers. "He's not like other guys," she said one night over dinner. "He actually listens, pays attention to what I need." The way she said it bothered me, like she was comparing him to someone, like maybe she was comparing him to me. I tried talking to her about it, asked if everything was okay between us. She brushed it off, said I was being paranoid, said the gym was the best thing that had happened to her in years. "You should be happy for me," she said. "I'm finally doing something for myself." But the credit card bills kept growing. Personal training sessions, supplements, new gym outfits every week, a massage therapist Luis recommended, protein shakes from some specialty place that cost more than our grocery budget. When I mentioned the spending, she got defensive, said I was being controlling, Said after 15 years of marriage, she deserved to invest in herself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was being paranoid. But paranoia is useful in my line of work. Clients come to me because I worry about things they don't think about. Market crashes, economic downturns, divorce settlements that wipe out decades of savings. I'd seen it happen too many times. Successful people who trusted the wrong person with access to their finances, who signed documents without reading them, who assumed their spouse would never hurt them. Last month, I started getting my financial house in order, just in case. Because in my experience, when someone starts acting differently with money, they're usually planning something you won't like. The text message came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a client meeting. Sabrina had been gone since early morning for what she called a special training session. I'd stopped asking questions weeks ago. My phone buzzed during a discussion about estate planning. I glanced at it, expecting work. Instead, I saw a message that made everything crystal clear. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with Luis. I've already cleaned out our bank account, LOL. I excused myself from the meeting, walked to my office, closed the door, read the message again. Then I checked our joint account online. Zero balance. $47,000. Gone. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes. Not angry, not surprised, just empty. Like something I'd been expecting finally happened. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sabrina. Don't try to contact me. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. I deserve half of everything. I typed back a single response. Good luck. Then I called my attorney, not to discuss divorce proceedings, to confirm something I'd set in motion 3 months ago. Ethan, good to hear from you. Is this about the trust structures we established? Yes. I need to know exactly what assets are protected. Everything we discussed, the real estate trust, the investment accounts, the retirement portfolios, all properly established and funded. Your wife has no legal claim to any of it. And the business assets? Also protected. The only account she had access to was the household checking account, as you specified. 3 months ago, when Sabrina's behavior first started raising red flags, I'd quietly moved our real assets into a series of irrevocable trusts. Legal, proper, bulletproof. I told her I was reorganizing our finances for tax purposes. She'd signed the paperwork without reading it, more interested in planning her next gym session than understanding what she was agreeing to. The house, the investment portfolio, my business accounts, the retirement funds. All of it now sitting in trusts that her name had never been on. What she'd taken was grocery money, bill money, the account I used for day-to-day expenses. $47,000 sounded like a lot to her, but it was less than 10% of our actual assets. I called the bank to report the unauthorized withdrawal, then called my client back to reschedule our meeting. That evening, I went home to an empty house. No note, no explanation, just missing clothes and toiletries. She'd taken her jewelry, her laptop, and apparently Luis. I made dinner for one. Sat in my kitchen with the paperwork my attorney had prepared months ago. Everything documented, everything legal, everything protected. She thought she was smarter than me, thought 15 years of marriage meant she understood how our finances worked. Turns out she never read the fine print. 2 days after Sabrina left, her attorney called my office. Douglas Hoffman from some downtown firm that specialized in high-asset divorce cases. His tone was confident, almost smug. Mr. Rhodes, I represent your wife Sabrina in her divorce proceedings. We need to discuss asset disclosure and temporary support arrangements. What assets? I asked. Don't play games, Mr. Rhodes. We know about the investment accounts, the real estate holdings, your business interests. Georgia is an equitable distribution state. My client is entitled to her fair share. I almost laughed. Mr. Hoffman, I suggest you review the documentation before making demands. My attorney is Bradley Coleman at Coleman & Associates. He'll be handling everything. We'll see about that. My client has provided me with bank statements, account numbers, property deeds. We have a complete picture of your finances. What Sabrina had provided him was outdated information, account statements from 6 months ago, property deeds that no longer reflected current ownership, a financial picture that looked impressive but was no longer accurate. After I hung up, I called Bradley. "They took the bait," I told him. "Let me guess, they're demanding 50% of assets that no longer exist in your name." "Exactly. How long before they figure it out?" "Depends how thorough they are. The trust documentation is public record, but they'd have to know where to look." Meanwhile, Sabrina was apparently living it up in Miami. Her social media showed beach photos, expensive restaurants, luxury hotel rooms, Luis flexing shirtless beside swimming pools. Her new life looked perfect, but perfection costs money. And $47,000 doesn't last long when you're trying to impress a 25-year-old personal trainer in one of the most expensive cities in the country. A week later, I got another call from Hoffman. "Mr. Rhodes, we need to schedule depositions immediately. My client has concerns about hidden assets." "I'm not hiding anything. Every asset I own is properly documented." "We'll see. My client says you've been secretive about finances for months. Moving money around, acting suspicious." He was right about that. I had been moving money around. But there was nothing secretive about it. Everything was legal, documented, and filed with the appropriate authorities. The problem was, Sabrina had never paid attention to the details. "Mr. Hoffman, I suggest you research Georgia trust law before threatening me with depositions. Your client signed documents 3 months ago that she apparently didn't bother to read." Silence on the other end. "What documents?" "The ones establishing irrevocable trust for estate planning purposes. The ones your client signed without asking questions because she was more interested in her gym schedule than understanding our financial structure." More silence. "I'll call you back," he said. He didn't call back that day, or the next day, but I knew he was researching, probably realizing that his confident demands were based on information that was no longer relevant. 3 days later, my phone rang again. This time it was Sabrina herself. "What the hell did you do?" Her voice was sharp, panicked. "I protected our assets, like I've been doing for 15 years. My lawyer says the house isn't in your name anymore. Says the investment accounts are gone, says you hid everything." "I didn't hide anything. I reorganized everything for tax efficiency. You signed the paperwork, remember? You said you trusted me to handle the finances. I thought you meant moving money between banks, not this. You should have read what you were signing. You tricked me. I explained exactly what I was doing. You chose not to pay attention." She hung up. But I knew the conversation wasn't over. Sabrina was used to getting what she wanted, used to being the smartest person in the room. Finding out she'd been outmaneuvered wouldn't sit well. The next week brought a flurry of legal activity. Hoffman filed emergency motions demanding asset disclosure, requested court orders to freeze accounts, accused me of fraudulent asset transfer. Bradley handled it all with the calm efficiency I'd hired him for. "They're grasping at straws," he told me over lunch. "Everything you did was perfectly legal, textbook estate planning. The judge will see right through this." But I knew Sabrina wouldn't give up easily. She'd always been resourceful when she wanted something, creative with solutions. The problem was, this time she was working with incomplete information. The truth was more complicated than even she realized. That expensive gym membership, the one where she met Luis? I'd been paying for it through our business account. Technically, it was a health and wellness expense for tax purposes, which meant I had records of every session, every payment, every hour she'd spent with her trainer. The credit card she'd been using for her restaurant dates, also tied to the business. Every charge documented, every location tracked, every meal she'd shared with Luis while telling me she was working late. Phone records showing hundreds of texts to Luis's number. Hotel receipts for weekend trips I'd thought were spa retreats with her sister. ATM withdrawals from locations nowhere near where she'd said she was going. I hadn't been snooping. I'd been doing my job as a financial planner, tracking expenses, monitoring spending patterns, making sure everything was properly categorized for tax purposes. But the pattern it revealed was devastating. 6 months of deception, 6 months of using our money to fund her affair, 6 months of lying to my face while she planned her exit strategy. The worst part? She'd gotten sloppy toward the end, started using our joint account for things that should have raised red flags: Luis's rent payments, his car insurance, his gym membership at a different facility. She hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been financially supporting her lover, using our money to fund his lifestyle while she planned to leave me with nothing. When I showed Bradley the documentation, his expression hardened. This changes things. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was embezzling marital funds for personal use. Can we use this? Oh, we're definitely using this. Adultery affects asset distribution in Georgia. But fraud? That's a whole different conversation. That evening, I got another call from Sabrina. Her tone had changed. Less aggressive, more desperate. Ethan, we need to talk. This legal stuff is getting out of hand. I'm listening. Can't we work something out? I know I hurt you, but we had 15 good years. I deserve something. You got something, $47,000. That's not enough to start over. I have expenses. Luis has needs. Luis has needs? She actually said that, like I was supposed to care about her boyfriend's financial requirements. Sabrina, you used our money to pay his bills for 6 months. His rent, his car, his expenses. You used our credit cards to fund your affair. What exactly do you think you deserve? I made mistakes, but you committed fraud. Using marital assets to support another relationship is illegal. My attorney has all the documentation. The line went quiet. You kept records? I keep records of everything. It's my job. You bastard. You planned this. No, Sabrina, you planned this. I just paid attention to what you were doing. She hung up again. But I knew the conversation had shifted. She was no longer demanding half of everything. She was trying to negotiate damage control. Too late for that. Hoffman called Bradley the next morning requesting a settlement conference. The aggressive demands had been replaced by a more reasonable tone. They wanted to negotiate. What are you thinking? Bradley asked me. I want her to understand the full scope of what she did. Then I want her gone. The meeting was scheduled for the following Wednesday at Bradley's office. Sabrina showed up looking different. Less confident, more nervous. Luis wasn't with her. Where's your boyfriend? I asked as she sat down. He's handling some business in Miami. Bradley laid out the documentation on the conference table. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, hotel receipts. 6 months of evidence showing exactly how Sabrina had used our money to fund her double life. Your client used marital assets to support an extramarital relationship, Bradley said calmly. She paid another man's rent, car payments, and living expenses using joint accounts. In Georgia, this constitutes dissipation of marital assets. Hoffman looked uncomfortable. My client acknowledges some inappropriate spending, but $53,000 over 6 months. I interrupted. That's not inappropriate spending, that's theft. Sabrina finally spoke up. I never meant for it to go this far. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you'd get away with more. Bradley slid another document across the table. This is what we're prepared to offer. Your client can keep the $47,000 she already took. In exchange, she signs a complete waiver of any claim to other marital assets. That's ridiculous, Hoffman said. She's entitled to nothing, Bradley cut him off. She committed adultery and embezzled marital funds. If this goes to court, she'll likely have to pay restitution. Sabrina looked at the papers, then at me. Ethan, please. I know I screwed up, but I can't live on $47,000. You should have thought about that before you decided to fund Luis's lifestyle. I'll pay you back. The money I spent on him. I'll get a job, With what skills? You haven't worked in 3 years. That hit home. Sabrina had quit her marketing job when I started making enough to support us both. Said she wanted to focus on personal development and finding herself. Apparently, she'd found herself in bed with a personal trainer. What about Luis? She asked quietly. What about him? He's expecting me to help him start a training business. I promised him we'd have money to invest. I almost laughed. Let me get this straight. You stole from our marriage to fund your affair and now you're worried about disappointing your boyfriend's business plans. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You bankrupted our relationship to invest in his future. Bradley intervened. The offer stands. $47,000 and a clean break. Or we go to court and she explains to a judge why she spent more than that supporting another man. Sabrina looked at Hoffman. He was reviewing the documentation, probably calculating how much worse this could get for his client. We need time to consider, he said. You have until Friday, Bradley replied. After that, we file a fraud complaint with the district attorney. As they left, Sabrina turned back to me. I loved you, Ethan. I really did. No, you loved what I could provide. There's a difference. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. Luis, your wife says you're trying to destroy her life. That's not right, man. I replied. My wife destroyed her own life, you just helped. He didn't text back. Friday morning, Hoffman called Bradley with their decision. Sabrina would accept the settlement, $47,000 and a complete release of claims. Smart choice, Bradley told me after hanging up. They realized fighting this would only make things worse for her. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more card to play. That afternoon, I drove to the gym where Sabrina had met Luis, spoke to the manager about their trainer certification requirements. Turns out Luis had been working there without proper credentials, using a fake certificate he'd bought online. I also learned that several female clients had complained about his unprofessional conduct. The gym had been building a case to fire him when Sabrina's situation provided the final excuse they needed. Luis was terminated that day. His work visa status was also under review, since his employment authorization was tied to his gym position. Meanwhile, Sabrina was discovering that $47,000 doesn't go far in Miami, especially when you're supporting an unemployed personal trainer with expensive tastes. She called me one last time. Luis lost his job. His visa situation is complicated. We might have to leave the country. That sounds like a you problem. Ethan, I know you're angry, but I'm not angry, Sabrina. I'm relieved. 15 years of marriage and I finally know who you really are. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 6 months, you chose to lie to me, chose to steal from us, chose to fund another man's life with our money. Can you ever forgive me? I already have, but forgiveness doesn't mean consequences disappear. She hung up for the last time. A week later, I received the signed settlement papers. Sabrina had officially given up any claim to our assets in exchange for keeping the money she'd already stolen. 3 months later, I sold the house in Brookhaven. Too many memories, too much space for one person. Bought a smaller place in Virginia Highland. Closer to work, easier to maintain. I kept busy with my clients, helped them protect their assets, plan for their futures, avoid the mistakes I'd almost made myself. Word got around about my divorce, and surprisingly, business picked up. Seems like successful men were interested in financial advice from someone who'd successfully protected his wealth during a contentious split. Sabrina and Luis lasted about 2 months in Miami before his visa issues forced them to leave for Mexico. I heard through mutual friends that she was working as a hostess at a resort restaurant, making enough to survive, but barely. Luis had moved on to a wealthy widow from Dallas. Apparently, personal trainers who specialize in older women can always find new clients. I didn't feel sorry for either of them. One evening, I was going through old papers when I found our wedding photos. Sabrina looked beautiful, happy, genuine. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her. Then I remembered the credit card statements, the lies, the stolen money, the complete disrespect for everything we'd built together. I put the photos in a box with other things I didn't need anymore, dropped it off at Goodwill the next morning. That weekend, I took my first vacation in 2 years. Just me, a good book, and a cabin in the mountains. No expensive restaurants, no luxury hotels, no one to impress, just peace. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. free from someone who'd been slowly stealing pieces of my life for longer than I'd realized. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away with your dignity intact.